I'm going to give you an introduction to our unique point of difference and what we do at DTLiveLAB. And then we're really going to delve into the power of empathy and why empathy matters so much at work and personally. And then really get into some interactive exercises around building the empathy muscle, including some on perspective taking. We're going to do our best to simulate a lot of how our live learning experiences work. While we won't be doing live interviews today, we will be doing an empathy exercise, and you guys are going to be the subjects of it. We're also going to use polls and ask you questions and have you drop your thoughts in the chat as a way to make this as interactive as possible. And we'll end with how you can go further on your journey. By way of introduction to the DTLiveLAB, I named it Live Lab because I feel really passionately that while personas have a place, they don't ignite our empathy as human beings. I think it's individuals. When you're face to face with a stranger and they're telling you about their thoughts, fears, emotional reasons, and rational reasons for doing things, that's what really gets in your head and your heart and makes you want to delight them. So all of our live learning experiences begin with either an empathy exercise or with live interviews of people we've curated for that particular project. True story, I actually originally developed this method when I was an executive director of innovation. One of the deans came to me and said, "Hey, I'm hosting 45 MBA deans here, and I'd like you to do an innovation session in a couple hours." Great. So I set it up for them Amazing Race style, and it worked so well in introducing them to design thinking and making design thinking accessible, which is really the goal. So each of the stages is very neatly organized, structured, and clear in its instructions. And we go through as a team all 5 stages. A great example, one of the popular projects that UXers and product management folks like to do together is this pet health project. So instead of going to a partner and saying, "Build me a pet health claim tracker," make it look like that Domino's pizza tracker, because that was great, and we don't have any money for research. Instead, we take that whole informal team and we run them through an exercise to talk to pet parents, find out what unmet needs are really on their mind, develop impactful solutions, and then assess those ideas with them to find those that are really strong. It's the difference between running a relay race where someone in product management hands me the baton and they just say, "Run fast, Gretch." And instead, we're kind of doing a Tough Mudder where the only way you're getting over that 12-foot wall is by working together and understanding and appreciating each other. They are really interactive. As I mentioned, Jim and I will facilitate these together for groups of 20 to 30 people, and Terry will manage the Zoom rooms for us. You can see a little picture of our Miro boards. We've poured tons of time into making these really intuitive, clear, and easy for people to use. And they're stocked with all kinds of great Easter eggs, like the beginning of a discussion guide that you can drag and drop. They also have real world examples and specific examples to show you what success looks like all along the way. And of course, we wrap it all in our super popular Engage to Give charity program, where every time people engage, comment, and react, they're earning points that we then turn into a donation to the charity of their choosing. It's allowed us to donate thousands and thousands of dollars to over 40 charities over the last 30 years. I had the good fortune to go to Stanford for a year of innovation training. And I know a lot of you have had design thinking training in MBA programs and others, but it's not accessible to everyone. And your other option is really to do a Coursera asynchronous or watch some videos online. And come on, it's kind of like watching paint dry. So we fill this space in the middle with these facilitated workshops that feature a live learning lab. And what we found is that people make huge gains and double their skill sets and mindsets in just a matter of hours. And so that's what we do. I'd like to transition to really beginning to talk about empathy. This is the magic. We can get a lot out of design thinking with all of the tools, but really it's the combination of igniting our empathy for ourselves, our teammates, and customers, plus the broadest sense of action. Do we use the language of empathy? What are our personal freedoms? What are the problems that we solve for people or the ways we think to delight them? And then how we work and collaborate together. That's the magic. And it's really design thinking is so grounded in empathy. That's what we're going to go deep on today. You guys know this. Empathy is not just a soft skill anymore. It's driving real business results. A couple of stats that I love. McKinsey came out with a study that said customer experience, which is driven by empathy for customers, does more to drive profitable growth than increasing your ad spending or decreasing your prices. And executives are getting it. A full 80% of them have said, yeah, empathy drives the bottom line for sure. And we're seeing companies put their money where their mouth is. Apple gives empathy training to everyone that works on the Genius Bar. And you can feel it when you go in there. Going into that feels very empathetic. But it matters at the personal level too, because when our empathy is ignited, we're more creative problem solvers, and we create the kinds of teams and cultures that retain top talent and attract top talent. So what I'd like to do today actually is to stop sharing this and launch a couple of polls. Polls are something we use in our live learning experiences to really get the perspective. And I'd like to know how you guys are showing up today. So let's be human. I'm going to launch this poll. It's anonymous. I'll only see aggregated results. You can vote once. So if you guys could tell us, how are you? What's your emotional context today?
Good to see the responses. 18 of 18.
Okay, let's share the results. So great. So a lot of us are curious and hoping to learn something useful for your work, and that's will be our focus today. And of course, very human answer. I'm kind of stressed, right? I signed up for this, but of course, those are magnets on your calendar for other burning priorities. And wonderful to see that a lot of people, it's empathy, and this is something I want to do. Let me launch the second poll. I'm curious, what's the current state of empathy in your organization? Is this something that just a few people at the top are endorsing? Is it in silos like yours? Are you fortunate enough that it's baked into your culture? Okay. One great organization, it's in their culture at all levels. Okay. Okay, so there's some silos like yours, people that are in customer-centric roles that are champion and actively growing empathy, a couple in enlightened leaders, right? And then Marcom UX CX. So they're sort of the leaders. I'd love to know who, if anybody wants to share, who is fortunate enough to have empathy in their culture at all levels. Was that you, Jim?
No.
Well, this has been great. This sort of gives us some context on how all of you are showing up today. Awesome, Peter, and hiring, fantastic. So Gore, not a surprise there. That's wonderful. And great to see you here today. Okay, so now that we've shown the polls, I think because we're going to go deep in empathy today. I know you guys all know empathy. You know it when you see it, you know when you feel it. But it might be nice just as a quick to take a couple minutes, kind of level set everybody and what empathy is versus sympathy, and have that common grounding. So why don't we take a look at a 2-minute video on empathy from none other than Brene Brown.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." I had a, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So I think what is important here is when we talk about empathy. Oh, hold on a second. Excuse me. Let me mute this.
Jim, I think you might be muted now.
Okay, now I'm
Yeah.
muted. Okay.
There you go.
Empathy for me. Before you have empathy for others, you have to have empathy for yourself. And before you can understand others, you have to understand yourself, because we all look at the world through our own lenses. And there are a lot of different, one of the tools we use obviously personality profile tools. There's Myers-Briggs, HBDI, DISC, Anagram. The ones that we use Myers-Briggs in the live lab, and we have all of our attendees kind of either self-assess or take the test so they can get a good sense of how do they view the world. And then what we do is we put them into groups so that they can understand others based on their HBDI profile. And so I think, Gretchen, are you going to launch a poll here? So we do two profiles. There you go. And we call these profiles, we don't call them, strengths, weaknesses, we call them superpowers. And I think it's important that, superpowers are where you really perform your best. What's your inclination? What can you really do really well? And then obviously with any strength, there obviously sometimes comes weaknesses, areas that you need to have a blind spot and you don't see things the way that other people see them. And it's really important that we set up teams so that they can understand not only what their own superpower is, the role that they play in any innovation team, but also the areas where they may have a little bit of a blind spot or a little bit of a weakness. And so what can we do to help promote these superpowers? So the question is, what is your superpower, right? And we're going to dig into that today, and we're going to have you self-identify the superpower that you have that you can bring to an innovation team.
So this is going to be high level. When we're doing this as a live session, we're having people do one of the personality styles first so that we're really clear on the whole makeup of the team and we can go deep on this. But for today, we're going to give you kind of a high level where I think you can get an instinctive sense of what your type is based on the way that we take information in and the way that we approach our sort of lifestyle. And so as we go through these, think about not only what you think your type is and then superpower, but maybe think about a couple of people that you work with. And I think this is a place to reach into those informal teams. Sometimes the people who we find sort of irritating, it's revealing to see that their power is different from ours. And that's where we need to direct some of our empathy and perspective taking. So I'm going to ask you guys in the chat to drop in which of these you identify with. And so this is from Myers-Briggs, how you like to gather information. If you are an S, you like things that are data, facts, things that are very observable and practical. You're also really grounded in the way things are now, in the here and now. If you like to gather information through your intuition, or an N, then you tend to like to make some sort of intuitive leaps to what might be true, to ideas, and think conceptually about things or theoretically. And you tend to like to imagine the future. You're thinking about, where's the future of AI going? Where's the future of driverless cars going? And imagining that. One of the tools in design thinking is an empathy map. And on the left side, it says, what did you see people do? And what did they say? And we find that S's are very comfortable on that left side and very good at noting those things. On the other side of the empathy map is, so what might that person have been thinking and what might they have been feeling? And that's where the N's really shine. So for example, when Shimano was doing research on why people didn't like to ride these high performance bikes, and they rolled this bike out in front of someone who's an N might have said, wow, they didn't even seem curious about the bike or want to take it for a spin. I think it was intimidating for them. I think they might feel like biking's gotten too complicated. Let's pair that with how we like to approach our lifestyles. Jim?
Yeah, so J or P, J and P, this is how do you approach the world? You know, what's your perspective when you get into any kind of situation like, so J, you're planned, you're organized, you're structured, you're controlled, you're scheduled, and you're decisive, right? That's how you approach the world. If you're P, perceiving, it's emergent, it's flexible, it's unconstrained, it's open-ended, it's spontaneous. You're curious about what could happen. And so if you think about like in a Saturday, how do you work your Saturdays? Do you set an alarm and you get up at 8 so that I can go walking? I gotta have coffee with my book club member at 9. And then I go back and I do some chores so that I can go shopping, and then I can hit the tennis courts and then finally go to that concert that I planned 3 weeks ago. Or if you're more like me, you don't have an alarm. You wake up to see if the sun is shining or not. And should I go to the park? Maybe I'll run across some people I know. Maybe there's a concert going, or if I don't feel like it, I can always drop into the movie. And I'll check in with my buddy because maybe he's playing video games, and then I can kind of see, or I can always work on that art project that I've been working on for like the last 5 years. That's still in my garage. So we got some J's, we got some P's. If you're J or P, please put it in.
And also put in an S or an N.
Right, we got the S's and N's. So thank you. Welcome, P's. God bless you, J's.
What's the mix looking like, Jim? Can you tell?
It's pretty fit. It's a lot of nice mix. It's like a 50-50, both in both categories.
Okay, fantastic. Did anybody really feel they were a strong J or a strong P? We've got a small enough group we could share. Would anybody like to come off mute?
Tell us about their Saturdays or their vacation plans.
And I think sometimes, these are like inherent affinities. You're born right or left-handed. It doesn't mean that if you're born right-handed or you write a lot with the left, you're not going to get really good at it. I would say I'm a P, but I've gotten really good because work requires me to act more like a J. And I'm curious, that's why I love the Saturday or vacation example of where your kind of true colors come out.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at the 4 combinations when they come together. What we've done is we've overlaid the basics of Myers-Briggs with our experience in innovation to try to reveal for you guys what a superpower might look like, because we all know that innovation doesn't equal ideation, right? An idea found still needs to be brought to market. And so how does everyone line up in their superpowers in the team sport that's innovation? I'm going to introduce the first type, and it's also really interesting to see the prevalence in society. And then we'll take a look at the prevalence in our group here. We've never had a team that's lined up with the prevalence in the general market. So in the general population, 1 out of 2 people you meet is an analyst. And that means that they're really comfortable crunching lots of data and seeing what it means. They really shine in the defined stage of innovation because they're the ones that might say, hey, we see the emergence of a lot of people that are boomers that are quitting their jobs and working in the gig economy, and they can no longer contribute to their 401k. That might be an opportunity or a way that our business is changing, or customers are changing. So they're great at identifying those gaps and the changing conditions that are happening. A friend who works in data said, trust in God, all others bring data. And I'm going to guess that he's an analyst, because I think the analyst can speak truth and back it up with numbers. What can be challenging when you're an analyst working in innovation is that you like to really precisely make sure we're solving the right problem, have it very clearly defined with the right words, and spend time, right? So S means I draw from those practical, tangible information, and P means I like things emergent. So I want to really work at this until we have it very defined. When you can't get to 99% certainty in data in innovation, those of you working with AI and working with emerging technologies know this well. How you can help care and feeding of an analyst is encourage them to make a leap of faith when not all is known. And a little tip that we've discovered to help bridge that is to use hypotheses and experiments. So in that example of boomers in the gig economy, we would say, well, okay, we only have 80% certainty that they still want to invest in a regular fashion like they used to. Let's set that as a hypothesis and run some experiments. Maybe it will be some market research to test whether that hypothesis is true or whether it's something else. This is a great way to help support your teammate who's an analyst. Okay, anybody here? Anybody want to drop into the chat, or maybe it'd be helpful to hear all 4 types first, and then we can everybody drop in. Okay, all right. Next up is NP.
Yeah, let's talk about NP. So this is both intuition and perceiving, and the NPs are live in a world of the future. And they're really good at coming up with new thinking and original thoughts and connecting things that are normally not connected. And they're really interested in the way the world can be rather than constrained by what the world is now and where it is. So if you're in on an innovation team, they're really good at thinking at quote unquote outside of the box, coming up with novel solutions, looking at it from a new way, kind of generating energy off of coming up with ideas. And that is a fantastic thing. But of course, at some point, those ideas need to be put into action. And so to care and feed for a ideator is to give them room to explore without converging. But at some point, you do have to put the ideas away, and you can't keep improving. An NP will keep coming up with ideas even while it's in the manufacturing floor. So you need to put constraints and say, let's have fun some other time, but let's get real and make this thing work. So recognize that the idea is not the end. Only when you have put something into action have you really kind of made an idea come to life.
Is it fair to say that the NPs like to live in the fuzzy front end, Jim?
They love the front end. That's the fun part.
That's right. So the next type,
Peter.
The next type draws from intuition, but also likes things more decided and scheduled. And that creates a powerful role of the decider. This is somebody that now we've defined precisely the problem to solve. We've generated fantastic mild to wild ideas of ways to solve it. The decider is really going to excel in picking the idea. In ideation, we say there's no such thing as a bad idea because we want it to be an open, safe space. But when we get to this point where we're converging, the decider's like, yeah, not all the ideas. I had a bad analogy when I was teaching in the university of not all kids are going to college, like not all ideas are going to be brought to market. This is where we really want to pick the strongest idea. We're not going to develop 100 different things. So let's pick the winner. One of the NJs I talked to said, hey, it's almost like I see the synthesis of all the pieces of information in my head, and it just appears what the solution is, what the path forward should be. And they're very comfortable. I feel this could also be an architect, because I can sort of see the design and vision for the future and help people imagine the path forward. The care and feeding for the decider is to really value their ability to make these tough choices, right? We do have to move on from ideation and set direction in order to create and capture new value. But if you're a decider, you can be off leading a parade only to look over your shoulder and realize no one's following you because they're a little lost. So stop and sort of explain the steps behind your decision to garner more support and to make sure that the rest of the team is equally bought in to the path forward as you are. Which takes us to the fourth and vital type.
SJ, my best partner. Okay, actually, as an NP, I'm very fortunate to have a lovely wife who is an SJ, and she's the one that makes it happen. You know, while I'm living in fantasy world, these are the people that can actually bring it to action. They're the ones that are interested in, you know, the what are the practicalities of it? You know, what needs to be done? What are the schedules for the resources? What are the constraints? What is the timeline? How do we get this out into the world in a physical form in a way that, you know, makes all of this thinking come to life? So SJs are really good to partner with NPs because they are the ones that are a little bit more practical and pragmatic. Obviously, you have to make the decision first, and then you take them to the SJs. So SJs are like supply chain people who, thank God, they can get it done.
It's not surprising that there'd be some natural friction between an SJ and an NP, or an SP and an NJ, because until we have the empathy to realize there, as Jim said, a natural partner, if you are an ideator, you are in love with all of the ideas, and having somebody really think through like, how is that going to work? Like, how is that possible? Can we do that? What would it take? Can feel like they're raining on the parade, but really what they're doing is they're just tangibly thinking through all the things that they need to solve and that they're going to solve for you. And the same thing, if you are the analyst, you don't want to quickly proceed to the path forward because you want to get more information to know that for it to be clear to you that it is the right path forward. And so there can be some natural frictions between those. So if you feel friction with someone, it's oftentimes a good clue to stop and think, what type are they? What things am I hearing them say, or even ask them, so that we can have empathy for each other. And really, this is to me what creates the dream teams, right? This is how you take a bunch of individual superstars and turn them into that kind of connected group. Oftentimes they're not the best funded groups, but they rise up and they do amazing work. And if you guys have been part of this, you know, you look back on that work and you're so proud of the work you did and the way you did it. And you are so connected to people that 10, 15 years later, you still have that tight bond. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides for a second so that we can see in the chat what everybody's type is and what our mix is today. This is how they all fit together in innovation. So we've got the analyst to define, the ideator to discover, the decider to decide, and the implementer that's going to really deliver the value. So this is what we'd love to know is, what's the mix in our group today?
Implementer. Feel free to join in. NP, thank Peter. Yeah. Brittany, bless you. Decider. Thank you, Eric. Let's get all these sticky notes off the wall. Analyst. Yes, Brian. Samita, thank you.
Blessed.
Okay, Gabriel, welcome to the club. Gloria, SP. Partners up with Joanne, SP. Terrific. We've got a pretty good innovation team here.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it difficult for anybody to pick their type, or was it just crystal clear for you?
Feel free to drop in the chat or speak up.
Mine was crystal clear.
What was it, Gail?
We'll say at work, I can't be an NP because I have students in the classroom. But it is your clear, but you have to learn to be situational. You're right, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these are kind of very context oriented.
Okay. Gail, was there one thing that resonated for you?
Bringing it to action and getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And are you known, do people know you as someone that if they pull you in, then you're going to make things happen?
Yep.
So
100%.
So that's the other thing when we're doing these in live groups is we always encourage people, if it's your coworkers, like be capturing who are what different types. So when you know you need that superpower, you're going to be, calling up that friend and trading services. Hey, you need an ideator, Jim will join you. And we need somebody to make it happen. Can you join our team and help us? Peter, I know that you lead innovation at Gore, and as an NP, what do you find? Do you find you have a mix on your team?
Yeah, thanks, Gretchen. We do have a mix, but where my mind is going right as an NP and trying to lead right with structure and reinforce numbers and execute. Yeah, it's a team effort, we'll say, and a lot of self-awareness to be able to recognize how I need to show up in order to be able to get the job done. But certainly recalling many examples where teams are at their best when they've got their complementers working side by side with really strong trusting relationships. The magic happens.
That's awesome. It's awesome. We tend to see a lot more NJs as well, like especially the higher you go in organizations. Barbie, at your organization, we've seen a lot of NJs as well. And in some ways, I think you're the unicorn there. Many times we find there aren't a lot of analysts. So I'm going to be noting that so that I know now an analyst that I can reach out to. So why don't we move to the what we've been leading up to, which is to do an empathy exercise where we walk in someone else's shoes. And I'm going to tee this up with a slide. Give me a second to get to the right slide. Okay. We thought this might be interesting. This was a design thinking sprint we ran recently, and this was the mix. You can see in this one, the SP was a bit more rare than the other types, and then pretty well balanced. Okay, so this is what's fun, this role play exercise. We're going to go in the Wayback Time Machine to 2010. If you can believe it, that's when Warby Parker was launched, was in 2010, with this crazy idea of mailing people 5 eyeglasses to their home that they could try on and decide which one they wanted. And then Warby Parker would make them and mail them to them. And they also had a great, kind of inspired by Tom's Shoes, I assume, program where for every frame you bought, they would donate one to someone in need. So we're going to go back to 2010 and imagine that you guys are the startup team at Warby Parker. You drained your 401k plans and put all your retirement on the line because you believe in this company. And it's the early stages. So far, you're having success. You've sold 1,000 eyeglasses through your mail order model. And the situation that you face is an interesting one because your brother's friend's cousin's sister was calling on Walmart. And while she was there, she was talking up this Warby Parker because she thinks it's so cool. And they said, oh my God, this is awesome. We would like to have one of these Warby Parkers in each one of our 10,000 stores. Can you talk to them and tell them we want to make that happen, place that order? So she stepped out and called, and you've gotten your startup team together for a meeting to talk about and role play. What do you think about this opportunity? And we're less interested in you guys role playing, here's the answer, and we're more how you would approach it if you were a team of all one type, hopefully a type different than yourself. So here's the rules for the instructions for the role play. You're going to pretend that you're the exec team or startup team and think aloud how the team might naturally approach the problem. What things would you focus on and what things would you avoid or miss? The key here is don't say they would do this, say we would do this. That's how you know you're in a firsthand walking in the shoes of someone else. We as SP types would do this. So when you get into your rooms, open up the chat, you'll find these slides in there. And I'm going to explain which type each team is going to role play, talk about the type, and then adopt this type and role play out for 5 minutes what your meeting would look like. At the very end, tag one person who can share what it was like when we come back in, because the power of this exercise is really in the debrief. We spend a lot more time on this and more rigor when we do it in person, but we just wanted to simulate it so you guys could experience what it's like to work with us and what it's like to do this powerful exercise. So we're just going to do 5 minutes. If you feel a little lost, you're not totally clear on the instructions, don't sweat it. We're just trying to try this on for size. Okay. So Jim and I are just going to demo a type that neither of us are, SP. So if we had been designated SPs, we'll sort of, get into our Oscar mindset, Academy Award winning mindset of analysts. So Jim, I first of all, can't believe that Joe's brothers, sisters, friends, cousins, wife was the one to bring this up at Walmart. That's like, wow. This is.
Yeah, this totally throws the whole strategy off. And we've been working on that strategy for years now. I don't know what they were thinking. How does this fit into that analysis that we did?
Yeah, I have a report here of our we've sold 1,000 glasses so far, and I have a report here of the sales by geographic region. We haven't even had a chance to go through yet. I mean, I think we're seeing some differences in the Southeast than we are in the Northwest.
Completely different target audience. We're going to have to do a ton of research to understand who are these Walmart customers, and how are they going to react to glasses? Do they wear glasses? I mean, who knows? Right.
Why don't we start a discovery list of documents we'd like and data that we'd like to ask for before we can give an answer?
Yeah, and obviously this is going to take some time and resources, but we want to be, make sure we have this thought through before we do anything, because we don't start generating ideas until we've really got this tight. We
got to really precisely define this and know what we're getting into. And I think we got to tell Sally, like, I think maybe if we had 12 months to study this, then we could probably come back and
we'll get back to them.
Right? Yeah.
We had a lot of thinking to do here. Okay.
Okay. All right. So great. End scene. Thanks. So you can see what the idea of the role play is. It's to step into the shoes of a type other than yourself. And I'm going to give you the question that we're going to ask when you come back. And it's simple. It's, how does it feel to play a type that's different than your own? So there's the answer of the question that ahead of time. So here's how we'd like to do this to make this a little bit simpler. So for those of you whose last names begin with A through J, you're going to pick one of the teams that Terry's opened up and go in and role play being a startup team of all ideators. They're very different from the analysts, right? They love that fuzzy front end and coming up with ideas and more ideas and ideas. And then if you're the back half of the alphabet, you're going to play the role of the implementer. And so you're really drawn to figuring out how to make things happen. Gail, I hope you're right on the butt. Can you go with the ideator, because Kay is just catching you to the type you are.
Sure.
And actually, why don't we just make that full latitude for anybody? So if you're lining up with a type you are, feel free to go to one of the other rooms, because that's the power of this, is to experience a type other than yourself.
And a lot of times that's what we do, is we make people go to the type that they're opposite of.
Right.
All right. So this is just a demo here of how we let people interact with each other and talk and discuss, how they would approach a problem. So
we have 8 rooms. I'm going to just go ahead and open these up, Terry. And basically how this works is you can join one of the rooms. They're labeled either the ideator or the implementer. So go ahead and jump into a room. Does everybody know? I see if anybody doesn't know how to get into a room on Zoom, just let us know. Okay, I see people jumping into room 1 and room 2, room 3.
I don't know how to join a room. Sorry.
What's that, Joanne?
Can you help me? I'm not sure how to get to a room.
Absolutely. Do you see a little on your screen, maybe on the bottom, might say more with 3 dots?
Yes, it does.
Okay, click on breakout rooms.
Okay.
Okay, and now you should see something popping up with rooms.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Great,
so
thank you. Appreciate it.
you're welcome. I'm sure someone else had that same question, so I appreciate you asking it.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Okay, once everybody is in rooms, we'll have 5 minutes. And Jim, did you drop the information into the chat for everybody? Yep, you already did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's in the main chat.
Okay. 6. Terry, do you have a timer running for 5 minutes over there? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, do you need help joining a room?
It might be off channel.
Okay,
I was on mute. Yes, I've got a timer
got
running.
it. Okay. So we've got 3 people, 5 people in the implementer,
Mm-hmm.
2 people in the implementer. Okay.
Five might be a little long. They might. We'll see.
Well, there's only 2 in the other implementer room. Maybe pop in there and ask one of them to move to the implementer 3 room.
I think maybe we leave them at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks though, Terry.
All right, I'll give them a 1-minute warning at the 4-minute mark, and then
And I have examples of what the different types would come up with if you didn't want me to share that.
Yeah, that would be great. Terry, can you see what Regine's last name is?
Regine. No,
Regine? No, okay.
nope.
So I only have 12 in the rooms.
Is the timer going off?
No. I started it when that Joanne went in at 4 minutes, so it's got 1 minute 30 seconds left. Are you talking about my timer?
Just in general. I didn't know when they would be coming back.
I've got 13 in the rooms. And then we've got 14. There were 2 people that had signed in initially and then left, a Kay Chavez and a Ben Fears.
Who was it? Kay
Chavez, Kay, so it was Kay Chavez and
Right.
Ben Fears were
Okay,
2 that had signed up and signed in initially and then left.
then scooted. Okay. So Terry, how many minutes left?
40 seconds.
So Jim, you don't need me to show any slides when they come back, right?
No, we can, as you know, if we want to say we're going to, so, you know, the ideators, anybody want to share what they came up with? Love to hear it. We've got some examples. And then implementers, you know, how would an implementer look at this?
I don't know if I need this slide to recap. I think I just need this one.
I think this is just one exercise out of a 3-hour session that I think helps
So
make.
the timer just went off. You ready for me to shut the room down, bring them back?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. All right, welcome back, innovation team. Warby's been calling us while you were gone. We want to know what's going on. So, welcome back. Joanne, what were you? Were you an ideator? Oh, you're on
You're on
mute.
mute.
I went into an implementer room, but I'm an analyst, so
It came natural, huh? You were
yeah.
were
I was like,
coaching.
whoa, slow down. I need more facts. That's how I was feeling.
All right, so hopefully everybody got a chance to maybe you got to play a role that's not yours, and that's kind of the idea. And we do this a lot. We try to put people in situations so that they can experience things. You know, that's why we call it live lab, right? And do we have anybody who's an implementer that's an ideator that wants to share some of the ideas, some of the fantastic ideas, mind-blowing, out of the box thinking from the ideators? Anybody? Who was an ideator? What was the best, Peter? And I see a smile on your face, or did you go to implementers?
I went to implementers.
You suffered. Okay. Anybody? What was an idea that you really thought was pretty cool? Anybody come up with an idea? What would Warby Parker do if they had to go to Walmart?
We bounced right past whether it was a good idea or not. Maybe we should have a Warby Parker Walmart version and keep one line for Warby Parker and the other becomes Walmart Parker. And then we
Walmart
realized that maybe
Parker.
we could not
Okay.
limit ourselves just to glasses.
Because we got to think global.
And not, maybe not. Yeah, we got to think global, and we have to acquire companies.
Yes, we have to start buying companies. Okay. What about the implementers? Anybody on the implementing side who had to like ground this thing? That's okay.
We had some good conversation. I think it took me a minute personally to figure out to put my mindset in that implementer space. Because at first we're like, well, what is this going to look like? And what about this? And what about that? And because thinking through, I can't do anything until all those decisions are made. Yes. And then it was the realization like, okay, yeah, that's probably when we think about an implementer, they're like, yeah, make your decision so we can actually execute it. And so it took me personally just a little bit to get there. And then I was like, yeah, I want to make plans and Gantt charts and all these things and how we're going to execute. But recognizing need to let the ideators come up with the great ideas like Walmart Parker and then go from there and not try to solve for those.
Well said. So we've run this. This is just one example of one of the live lab exercises we do to drive empathy and understanding of how other people thinks. So here, like if an ideator, we come back, we need to do you know what? Warby Parker custom made glasses. What if we had a 3D printer in every Walmart and you could actually get your glasses printed on a 3D frame while you're shopping, right? And then we could have these little pop-up, the little factories within every Walmart. And what if, or maybe every employee at Walmart wore Warby Parker glasses, right? It was almost like a promo. And then since they're custom printing in the store, we can target those towards football weekends, and then you could get Cincinnati Bengals glasses. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Oh, we have famous people. We'll run a campaign, social media campaign saying, you can clearly see the savings, right? Get it? You can clearly see the savings here at Walmart with Warby Parker. Beautiful. All right. Of course, we just started. All right, implementer, right? Implementer goes, first of all, I want clarification on the agreement and the expectations. Tell me exactly what we have to be doing here, right? Okay, yeah. Give me the timeline and the milestones that I need to meet. What is our supply chain situation? Do we have resources? Do we have the supply needed for all of these orders that are coming up? And then how many people are we going to have to employ, and what is the training involved? So that's kind of the example of when people go in and we come out and then we compare and see how the different perspectives approach this one problem from, four different points of view.
It's also really fun. We'll put teams in where the team is split 50-50. So you put the ideators in with the implementers and have them role play. And that's a really powerful way to try to understand each other and reach an agreement. And same thing with the other two opposite types. So I hope this has given you a sense of how we work at DTLiveLAB and helped you flex your empathy muscle, giving you something to think about tangibly in real world with your own teams and in your own work. I'd like to just end with 2 more slides, if I could, that what we've done is just show you the tip of the iceberg on what we do. And there's so much more that we can do with you. Some of the groups that we're working with is, for example, the front line. I know there were people joining today that are responsible for the front line. You know, helping them really turn friction into something fabulous is a great design thinking application, because we're dialing up our empathy, we're putting it into action, and we're collaborating and crowdsourcing. UX partners working with product management and sprints to better understand each other. A lot of operations is being told drive efficiencies, but how can we also understand, how can we drive efficiencies and delight customers and not create new sources of friction that diminish the overall experience? And sometimes where we need to start is actually with a roadmap of what's next and what are the priorities and how do we get the group aligned against those priorities so that then we can begin to have people use design thinking to deliver against that. If you liked what we did today, look for additional sessions. Every month or 2, we're going to be running a free webinar session. And if you'll drop your email into chat or email me at Gretchen@DTLiveLab or info@DTLiveLab, and I'll send you the slides and some more information. And I'll also send you a link where you can book a complimentary 30-minute meeting where we can find opportunities to help you grow your team and your organization's design thinking skills.